Hi, I'm Josh. This is Drew here next to me, and you are watching our poll list. Today we're going to talk about Old Man Logan #1, Justice Inc. The Avenger #1. We'll be doing Giant Size Little Marvel AVX #1 and Airboy #1. So we're going to start off today talking about Old Man Logan. We got it right here, Old Man Logan #1. This is written by Bendis with art by Sorrentino and Mayololo. So whoever that is, that's the artist. And Drew, so what happened in this issue?
As far as the feel, I got kind of a like a Kill Bill Western was like the vibe that I got. So it opens up, and there's a bunch of child traffickers. A lot of them are just like Daredevil. They apparently don't know who he is though, and that comes up a little bit more later. But so Logan kills a bunch of child traffickers. They mention that the Hulks are missing. He goes in, he kills more of the gang because they come in and try to kill him because he just killed the bros and everything. And he sets free these people that, they were child traffickers, so there's them. But there were also people that, were afraid of the gang and kind of living under the radar, so to speak. He sets them free, and they're really apathetic about the whole thing, which I found kind of amusing in itself, especially in like a superhero comic. Like, this is a Wolverine comic book.
Sure, yeah.
And first issue, like, he sets like a whole town of people free, and they just really couldn't care.
Yeah,
less.
Nobody cares.
They're like, what are we gonna do now?
Yeah, somebody else is just gonna fill the void, right?
He tries to threaten them into making a town. So at least there's that. He's out in the desert and he finds an Ultron head. So he's going around trying to investigate that. We find out through dialogue that Logan actually killed all the Hulks and Kingpin, and that's where the rival gangs kind of come in. And we also get introduced to the Punisher gang. So they're trying to divide up the territory that was left by Kingpin and the Hulks. So he goes back into the desert, there's a random dinosaur, and it ends in him climbing a wall trying to find more information about the Ultron.
For me, with this one, I'll completely agree with you. I think it had a total Western feel. I think that's completely what they're going for. They have him riding a horse through the Nevada desert, or what appears to be the Nevada desert. So they're clearly going for the Western vibe with this one. I kind of felt like they hit the mark with it.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it overall. I really liked the Daredevil gang. I thought that was really clever. I liked that that Logan, it bothered Logan.
That they didn't know who they were.
You could see that, he was not happy that there's all these people masquerading in his old pal's clothes, I didn't really care for particularly any of the action that occurred. It didn't excite me.
All right, here's the action scene. You knew we were going to do it. We were going to kill a bunch of people.
Right, here's where the snikt happens, right? Yeah. I didn't dislike it, but it just it didn't fall flat. I wouldn't be that critical of it because I did like the issue overall. But I felt like the character beats were the best. I also liked the callback that you constantly see in samurai films and sometimes in westerns too. With the kid, you killed my father. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to kill you. And he says, "Go ahead and try."
If you still feel that way when you grow up, come find me. That's fine.
It was cliche, but I think the cliches in this issue, help sell the setting and the style or the tone that they're going for. So it was kind of loaded with cliches, but I think there was a purpose.
Yeah.
I liked all the cameos. I think it's probably okay to spoil Danielle because I think she's going to be a major character in it. Danielle Cage, Luke and Jessica's daughter, which in the current timeline is just a baby, right? So that's cool to see. I really hope they bring her into it more. I hope that, because by the end of this, Logan is sort of leaving, right? He's not going to be around anymore. He's got his own problems he's going to go try to deal with, and I hope what they're setting up is a situation where it goes back and forth, where we see what Logan's doing, and we come back and we see what Danielle's doing with the baby Hulk. What a crazy, sort of setup there. I can't imagine that they're just going to leave that in the background because it's too right.
You have faith in the Bendis now.
Yeah. Also, I'm not familiar with the artist in this, but it feels a lot like Immortal Iron Fist.
See, I haven't read that yet.
It has sort of that same loner on a mission sort of vibe to it, and so I really like that they're going with a similar look and feel.
It's almost like normally the things in frames that you would assume would be in focus are actually the things that are very out of focus. And vice versa. So, I mean, faces and stuff like that, you only get vague kind of depictions of how people look most of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot just sort of left to the imagination, but then there's a lot of density in the backgrounds.
Yeah, the backgrounds are all beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very cool art style. It's it definitely evokes sort of that noir or Western feel of sort of heavy on the landscapes and settings, and more faces hidden behind. Behind the brim of the cap or the tall collars,
Stun of shades.
There's a lot of interesting setup here. It's got me hooked. I'm ready to read more.
I'm interested.
The ending was like, okay. And I'm not even, I'm not familiar with this Battle World stuff or the Secret Wars. It's like this world that's walled off and like everybody's sort of in their own walled off areas. I like that they're sort of eschewing that immediately. Like first issue, no, fuck that. Logan don't play that game, right?
Right.
So I like that a lot. So I definitely want to see where it's going.
He does end the issue on the wall though.
Right.
So
that's true.
There is that.
Yeah.
I expect the next issue to be pretty heavily into the whole Secret Wars Battle World thing.
Yeah, probably.
But that doesn't mean that it won't be a unique take on it.
Yeah,
and I don't think they would set up this whole like Western feel and then just abandon it once he jumps the wall.
Right, yeah. And there is some allusion or reference to the Battle World stuff and the Secret Wars, but being somebody that's not following it, I still felt completely comfortable. Bendis being the master of dialogue, it's really always been his strong point. He does a really good job of managing to get that exposition in there without making it feel like drudgery,
Yeah, really just through dialogue. I mean, there's not a lot of side narration at all.
No, yeah. That's always been his style. It's what draws me to him. I like some of the guys that do a lot of the expeditionary boxes, the Mark Waid type guys.
Which we have.
We definitely have that happening. Justice Inc., the Avenger. Right? Is that? It's. I have to say that's a terrible name.
Yeah.
It's half DC, half Marvel.
Yeah, he's not an Avenger.
Right? He's not an Avenger. He's not in any sort of Justice League or Society. The Justice Inc.
I'm not sure if it's like a remake of an old comic or not.
I have to assume it is. So this again, it was written by Mark Waid, and it's the art is by Ronaldson Friere, which why can we not get anything with a pronounceable artist name? So what happened here with this one, Joe?
So it opens on a train, and we see a very 1940s, 1950s kind of thing. There's a guy confronted by a lot of angry Italians with Tommy guns. And apparently what has happened is they've discovered that somebody on the train is this Avenger guy, who's the protagonist of the comic. And he has solved musical murders that they've been committing. It's kind of bizarre in itself. There's a clarinetist who ends up attacking a bunch of people and like a bunch of waves and stuff like that. So then later there's an old woman that comes into their justice office off the street, where she meets like the whole crew of everybody. So there's a chemist that rolls with this guy that does all kind of crazy stuff. He's got an electric engineer. He himself has a malleable face. I like the chemist guy because he made the nectar thing. He asked him for like a root beer float or something like that. And he's like, no, fuck that. Like, drink this.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. So the old woman, she saw a ghost in her apartment. And the Avenger and his crew go to check it out. They find him pretty immediately. He's a very muscular, veiny kind of looking thing. They get a bullet in him. That's the end of the comic.
Right, yeah. Explanatory-wise, there's just not much to talk about. Like, there wasn't a whole lot that happened there. There was a lot of exposition in this one. There was just a lot of the classic square, here's just the writer telling you what's happening.
Yeah, it's a very novelish kind of feel to it.
Yeah, which is always strange to me. Show, don't tell, right?
Yeah.
Like, for me, I felt like I don't know these characters yet, so telling me about them doesn't really engage me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to learn the characters through their actions. And I mean, it's definitely just an artistic choice that Mark Waid has made. I feel like he's going for that old pulp style. He'll write one series that feels like an 80s comic, you know, that feels, he'll try to emulate, you know, like Claremont.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then he'll do like a 90s comic style, you know, and like try to do something big and wacky, you know, like a Rob Liefeld sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. This one I almost got like a Great Gatsby kind of vibe from.
Yeah.
Definitely. And just the vernacular and everything, like the way that he narrates, you know, it has a very like kind of old feel to it.
You know, the narration could almost be like a radio play.
Yeah,
you know?
I could see that.
Yeah. With some guy, you know, doing sound effects, you know.
I kind of appreciated the extra bit of narration. I mean, it's kind of redundant because we're talking about a medium that has artwork, and it's very known for artwork, and it's very heavily in artwork. So you're sitting there and you're like telling me about these things, and then there's like a little picture of them,
like of it happening. Like you didn't, like, I can see it. You didn't need to tell me. Like maybe this could have been artistic direction that you give to the artist. And then you don't put it on the page because he's drawing the thing that you wrote, you know?
I almost like it because it kind of gives me that feel, you know? It's almost like a behind-the-scenes, like, when you look at a comic script that's given to an artist, like, what is he going to be looking at? How much direction does the artist give him?
Yeah.
You know, you don't really get that too often in comics. I guess modern comics are starting to do stuff like that a little bit more.
And there's I've noticed just over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe, a real push to bring back those narration boxes, you know. I remember there was a long period of time there where you just didn't even see them.
This is not cool.
They just weren't there. It just was not something you were supposed to do, you know. And so this feels almost like a pendulum swing back the other way. Like, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go back and do this like it's the 60s, you know, where I'm going to write basically a script that, like you said, it could be a novel.
So what did you think of the artwork accompanying the novel?
It was serviceable. I mean, it didn't grip me.
It is well done.
Yeah. The colorist is really good. You know, whoever's going in and doing the ink and the coloring on here, if it's all this Ronaldson Friere, that's a lot of work that he's done. You know, it's not necessarily my personal style. It's pretty impressive work, I guess, yeah.
I'm a very just plot-driven person, you know, and I appreciate art and stuff like that, but, you know, a lot of comic books just have this sort of, like, serviceable thing. So when you see something different, it's just like, you know, what is this? You know, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know? I have a friend that can't read the new Descender because it's all watercolor and it gives him headaches. He says it's just too blurry and he can't focus. Sure. I think it's gorgeous. I'm
sort of on the edge on this one. If I'm probably up for reading another, you know, see where it goes. But I didn't feel like it was the strongest start. Before we go on, I did like the juxtaposition between that opening scene and the rest of the comic. I thought that was an interesting way to sort of pull you into a really bizarre world, a really goofy, sort of fun world with, you know, a guy that plays a clarinet that makes you spin in the air. Dick Tracy style of villains. And then transitioning from that into sort of a slice of life almost, into these guys that run the Justice Inc. and this old lady that has a problem, you know, it really turned on a dime, which I thought was kind of interesting. So we were talking just a little bit ago when we were talking about this last comic. We were talking about art, right, and something different, and so that brings me to this one, the giant size Little Marvel AVX by Scotty Young, doing the writing and the art. Again, a guy with an unpronounceable name did the coloring and ink work on this. Really, this is a Scotty Young vehicle. This is the guy that everybody's been loving all of his variant covers for years now. Has it been years? I mean, he's kind of known as the variant cover guy.
So this one again, I mean, you can probably tell by looking at it, it's not, you know, like a Brubaker by any means. You know, you're not gonna get lost in the plot. But so it starts out, and Little Iron Man melts. Is it Magic or Magic?
I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I mean, it's in text, so you know.
So he melts this little girl's toy, and they fight. And then that ends. It's dinner time, and everybody goes inside, and the green monster that was once, you know, protruding from the street just goes back, and they're like, all right, we'll see you later, Carl, or something like that.
Bob. It was Bob.
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote it down.
Yeah. So then after that, it's the next day, and everybody's opening street food, like little vendor carts and trucks and stuff like that.
Right.
Captain America is selling hot dogs, and then Wolverine has hamburgers, and
it's just an escalation of events.
Yeah.
Right.
Just everybody's got something.
Right,
it turns out, Little Hulk just solves all their problems by eating a whole bunch of stuff. So then, I mean, that's pretty much the end of that conflict. While Little Iron Man is in his mega food truck, he sees this girl walk by that he likes, and he tries to talk to her and stuff like that, and she won't hang out with him because he's a kid and he's creepy because he has a mustache and a goatee.
Yeah, he's got a goatee. He's a child with a goatee. Yes.
Yeah. And then everybody makes fun of him, and he gets mad, and then they all fight again. And that's about it.
Yeah, you know, I couldn't even tell you how it ends, and I don't even care. I loved it.
It was fun.
I loved this comic. It was... If we didn't have the next one that we're going to talk about on this list this week, this would have been my pick of the litter.
Yeah.
This one was great. I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of great sight gags. You're not as familiar with Marvel, right? You're like a DC guy. So I was worried that maybe this would be a little too far out of your wheelhouse to enjoy like this alternate take on characters.
Right, but I don't even think that's necessary, which kind of brings me to one of the points that I want to make about it is, you know, people think about all ages things, and, you know, usually that just kind of means, like, you know, you can get it for your kids, but you're probably not going to be too into it.
Sure.
You know? But this really, I mean, you know, I'm 27, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I was smiling all the way through the read,
time.
You know. I laughed every other page.
It was great. Another thing that I had... I mean, the whole thing has a very, like, daytime Cartoon Network type of feel to it. I feel like the humor is very millennial.
Yeah.
Early to mid-20s, like, written all over it.
Sure,
you know.
sure. Yeah. And it's got a lot of great little sight gags and just little touches, you know, just that Scotty Young touch, you know. Yeah. There's a moment where they're all standing in line and they're going to order some food, right? Mm-hmm. But you get back to Daredevil, for example, and he's turned the wrong way. Right? Everybody else is looking this way, and he's like ordering to nobody.
Yeah.
Right? And there's like all these little moments like that. And there's also a lot of little iconic things, like the monster at the beginning that they're fighting. It has Thor in its mouth with his hammer raised, with the lightning coming down. You know, that's just a very iconic Thor image, but just done in like a really cute kind of fun way. Yeah. You're like, oh, cute little Thor, you know. It's so cheap and silly, but in all the right ways. I loved it. What can you really say about it?
It's great.
It's just great.
It's great.
Yeah, you should definitely read this one.
It's something that I wouldn't have picked up, but I'm super glad that we did.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was really good. But that brings us to what, in my opinion, was probably one of the best things I've read in a little while. I don't know how you feel about it, because we haven't discussed it yet, but I really liked this. This is Airboy. This is Robinson, James Robinson, and Eric Hinkle. And this is not what you're going to expect. I'll tell you that much. So Airboy, what happens in Airboy, Drew?
It is not what I expected at all.
Right.
You know, and I even did a little bit of research on the original series.
Researching Airboy?
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, what's this going to be about? And,
sure.
You know, it really didn't help me or introduce me to this comic at all.
No.
There's little to no correlation between the original comic and this comic so far.
Right.
We'll get to that later. The comic starts off with sort of an exposition of the writer, James Robinson. Very first page is him on the toilet just refusing to do the comic.
Right, he's talking to his editor.
He's talking to the editor at Image.
James Robinson.
Yeah.
An image of James Robinson on his toilet talking to the Image editor.
So yeah, he doesn't want to do Airboy at all as he's talking to his editor on the phone. He's writing for DC in this setting, and he really feels like his writing is suffering and like he just can't, he's not coming up with anything good. And he feels like at the current moment he's sort of known as like a Golden Age guy. He makes some references to Golden Age Starman and says that everybody, you know, just thinks, oh, hey, you know, yeah, you're that Starman guy. Another time he talks about like nobody ever talks about him unless he kills Batman or something.
Yeah.
He accepts the job. He's like, all right, I'll write Airboy, whatever. So he can't come up with any ideas for Airboy whatsoever, and he's talking to his wife, and she's like, well, why don't you, you know, collaborate with the artist a little bit, see if you can get some inspiration out of him. So he flies him out, the artist Greg Hinkle. So he picks him up at the airport, takes him to a hotel, and then they go out to bars, and they just do a ton of drugs and drink a whole lot, and they wake up and find out that some of the coke they had been doing was heroin, and then as they're going to do some of the actual coke that they had, Airboy appears in the living room.
Yeah, and that's
the end.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Plus penises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boobs.
And boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very flattering artwork.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. The art was gorgeous.
Yeah, and this is again.
I loved the art here.
It's something that was it was very different. It felt very just kind of smooth.
Almost the whole thing is 2-color art.
Mm-hmm.
Every page, Hinkle chose 2 colors, and he works the entire page with just those 2 colors, and those colors change based on sort of the feel he's trying to give you. Mm-hmm. Until halfway through the book, you hit a full page spread, and he goes into like 4 colors.
Yeah,
you know, because it was all like green and mauve, you know, and like a really muted like reddish color and like light browns, and then all of a sudden he throws in like this purple and like some yellow, I think it was, like just
bright
into
red.
Those same other colors, like bang, you know, it just so tasteful, and just so much time into the art. Like you could really tell that he really took his time on it. Image got their money's worth out of him, basically.
They really did,
because he had to have spent a lot of time on like the pencil work, which is also what makes it so interesting with the artwork. The pencil work is so detailed, and then it's just 2 colors. You know, it was just, I don't think I've seen that before. Yeah, it's an incredible work, art-wise.
And he actually talks about it, the writer being him as himself in the comic book. He's like, I chose you because essentially like he wanted a gimmick. He's like, I want some weird stuff that I can play off of.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Which, how difficult is it to discuss this piece? You know, it immediately evokes Kurt Vonnegut to me. Mm-hmm. Just immediately, which I love Vonnegut. So as soon as...
And Hunter S. Thompson is the other obvious connection.
Yeah,
they
Hunter
even
S.
make
Thompson.
it in there.
Yeah, they even mention Hunter S. Thompson in here.
That's one of the things that kind of blows me away is just how meta it is.
Yeah.
Because they have like a very Hunter S. Thompson experience, and then they mention him. You know, he talks about how he doesn't want to do an ironic Airboy because he thinks it's like, you know, for hipsters. And everybody, you know, that's doing comics and trying to be clever now just does like ironic stuff, and, you know, he hates it. But, you know, the fact that the comic is what it is is pretty ironic, you know. So again, there is irony. It's almost like he talks about so many things that he hates, and the comic accomplishes all of them.
It's all in here.
It's all in
this
there.
is maybe the most ironic work I've ever read. You know, and he even rails against irony in this ironic piece of work. Yeah, I agree. It's the writing's superb, and his character, him, which I would be interested to learn how much of each of these guys they're putting into the comic, and how much of it is completely fabricated. You know?
Yeah, it's like this hyperbole of yourself. You know, like he wants to be pictured as this like. And he even mentions that too, where he talks about how he uses like the drugs and the booze and stuff like that because it seems like glamorous,
right?
No, but it's really not. And that's essentially what he's doing, is he's building it up to be like this glamorous thing, and then he just totally like, breaks it down as like, this is horrible, and shows, you know, a couple scenes when you're like, God, this is awful.
Yeah. I mean, their environment looks terrible.
Yeah.
It looks like a terrible lifestyle, you know.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here looking at the cover like, man.
Yeah, right. And by the time I made it to the end, I was the whole thing just felt grimy and dirty and not an experience that you want to be along on. At first, you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. You know, these guys are going to go out and have some drinks, and you know, it's self-referential and interesting. And then it just gets sort of dark and grimy and a little bit sad, and then it hits you with that weird ending. Yeah, you know, where it's just out of nowhere, and that was like the full like three color, like classic 3-color, red, blue, and yellow for the guy. Like, you know, I thought that was really clever that they literally did red, blue, yellow, like primary, you know, equal distance on the color wheel. You know, like that was a nice little touch, like right in the middle of a otherwise.
Yeah, everything's all grimy, and then there's just this...
Da-da, you know. I'm super excited about this series.
Definitely.
This is now my go-to have to read immediately series.
Not what I expected at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not even close.
No.
It's good. Read it.
It's really good. If you're going to read one comic, this is the comic. Read this. This is.
I would agree.
Incredible.
That's my top pick for the poll this week.
Yeah, definitely for this week.
So clever.
Yeah. The overall, this was a pretty good week.
Yeah. You
know,
I wasn't necessarily dissatisfied with anything.
Yeah, any of these on this list, which will be in the description below, is a good buy. You know, they all do very different things. But they all did what they did pretty good. You know, I'd say Justice Inc. was probably the weakest link, which pains me to say. My Mark Waid, you know.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was great. I mean, none of these really have anything in common.
Yeah, not at all, really. They were about as far away from each other as you can get.
It's like, okay, if you say, oh, you want to read something funny? Well, you can read Airboy, you know, about like drugs and hookers and stuff, or you can read this giant size versus X.
You can have a swinging dong, or you know, kids eating ice cream. You know, whichever you prefer. They're both funny though. That is the episode for this week. Obligatory like and subscribe. Comment down below what you think about any of these comics. If there's anything you'd like us to review or talk about, let us know that as well. We will be back next week with some more picks. We'll have some other content coming soon.
Cool.
All right.